All right.
Yo.
Welcome. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis, Captain Jason, Captain James.
How you doing?
In the house. And we want some special prayers tonight for Rick and his family dealing with some stuff. So we ask everybody that's watching, say a prayer for Rick and his family tonight. And we're upset that he can't be here tonight with us, but
that's okay.
we understand.
Bigger stuff to deal with than the show.
But yeah, so we're here. You got the three of us here, the three amigos, and we're going to talk a little fishing.
We're missing the wise one, but we'll make it through.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah. Well, Happy New Year to everybody. I already see Jace and Manny on there. Ty.
What's up, Ty?
We got to talk fishing, man. We missed last week.
We missed last week's show. My boy Ernie. Oh, Ernie.
And Angelo.
We had a trip. Got Angelo chiming in. Well, anyway, guys, we're going to talk a little fishing, talk about what we've been doing, talk about coming into the new year, maybe some things that we might try different, or, I know I got some stuff I want to do a little different
New Year's
this year.
resolutions?
Yeah, I always like, there's at least one or two things a year that I like to kind of dabble in or try something different, you know, so we're going to try some different things, and as we do it, we'll let y'all know how we do, but in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing here recently. And where we're going in the next few weeks. So,
cool.
Jason, fire it off. Come on.
Been catching fish.
Give it to us.
Been catching fish. Been good. Water temp was 75 degrees today.
Yeah.
So it's hot today, man.
It was.
Yeah. I had my sweatshirt on. I had to take it off about 11:30.
Fishing's been good, man. the inshore fishing, it's like we're in early spring right now. I think that's probably we're gonna get hit with cold fronts. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's coming.
But we've had, we're pushing. I seen 78-degree water temperature the other day. I haven't gotten on the grouper swing like everybody else. I'm
too late now, buddy.
My thing. You can still catch
the grouper thing. He didn't say grouper fishing. He said the grouper thing.
The grouper thing.
Yeah,
I guess if you troll a plug, it doesn't count.
Grouper tastes good. Grouper tastes good.
Yeah, so I've been doing inshore a lot. I was gonna drop off, try to do a little bit of snapper fishing, but just had white bait and it's early spring patterns. And I said I'm going snook fishing.
Yep. So
we I do want to say that I've set a record this week on birds. And listen, PETA's gonna have to step it up, or they're gonna have some issues with birds.
Well, they're talking about cormorant season, man.
Yeah.
We need turn season.
Oh,
turn season.
It's the worst. My 15 years
bad,
of guiding,
man.
I've never had a week of birds like this.
This is crazy.
It's bad.
I mean, I actually.
Well, I think we've seen each other a lot catch a bait. How many have you had dive bomb your cast net?
Yeah.
We had some today that I was pulling up the net. You were beside us.
Yeah.
And the pelican got his beak stuck in my net.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull it up. I'm like, come on, dude.
I was having to shoe last week. I was with you. I mean, they were, as soon as I dumped the bait, because I didn't have my basket to put the bait in, and they're all over the deck. birds swarming in on me like all over me.
It's crazy.
Pelican
bad, dude.
he got a close shot on my dip net.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
I saw Thompson getting him with the hose. You know, you got to.
Oh man,
it's a dog world out there.
I mean, I don't want to mess with birds, but you know they're messing with us. Really, they're like they literally are following the boats around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just I threw some chum out today, and I don't think any of the bait made it to the fish. Like
same thing.
You know, I almost wonder if it makes the fish more anxious because they go to get a bait and it gets taken away.
Yeah.
I will tell you something that the first time I ever done it, and it was just I had to, and I caught a lot of fish, was I started putting a split shot halfway up the leader.
Yeah.
Never had to do it, never did it. I tried it one other time, and I didn't catch a lot of fish. It's one of the things you're like, I kind of had to do it, and it started working. The downside to that is I had a lot more gut hook fish, even with circle hooks, and my thinking was the fish are picking up off the bottom. You know, where if a bait's free line, they're hitting it, they're chasing
Feel it quick.
Where if it's sitting on the bottom, they're kind of just laying there. So you know, we had quite a few reties and no dead fish or anything, but it's been good. The snook fishing in January is not the norm, but I'll take it, man.
Although it has
awesome.
been here the last few years, honestly, man. I mean, we've had pretty good Januaries on snook.
Yeah.
I mean, February, I think the last 2 years, really, that February has been.
February last year was record. We had record temperatures.
It was,
and then we got cold in March.
March was our winter.
Listen, if we're going to have winter, I want to have it in January, not March. Because
get it over with, and let's have March in March.
Yeah, we had a weird one. So
I don't even know what normal is anymore. I'll be honest with you. The last
there isn't.
8 years it used to be pretty normal. It seems like with the weather. The last 8 years, it's since 2010, it's been strange. Like super warm, super cold. It's like the stock market, man. It's like the stock market.
Go green, man. We should all be.
You make a bunch one day and you lose it all the next.
Yeah.
So
fishing in 40 degrees and then 80 degrees, but
yeah, it's been
tough. I just look at the weather the night before. If it's warm, I know what I'm doing. If it's cold, I know what I'm doing. You know.
With the exception of that, I mean, the weather the last I'd say 4 days has been really nice.
Yeah. Light winds.
Yeah, that wind laid down a little bit. You know, through the last weekend. Now before that, a little breezy. You know, still a little chilly for me.
Next week, Steve.
For this cracker, I mean, I still wore a sweatshirt this morning.
I saw you wearing a sweatshirt when you came around me this morning, and I was like, "What is he doing?"
But see, I wear a sweatshirt. I couldn't even
make it through catching bait with this.
Dude,
I had a sweatshirt on.
I was soaked. Like I went to the gym and I worked out this morning. I promise you, I brought more calories on that neck. I was soaked by the time I left.
Yeah,
at 9:30.
It was. We got lucky, I think. I mean, we didn't throw that many times, but throwing that 12-foot humpback. Oh, Thompson was back there, man.
You felt humpback in your gut.
When I asked him, I said, "Hey, man, can I ride one of y'all to get bait?" Just kind of, because I didn't need a whole bunch.
Oh, he's like,
"Yeah, come on." He was like, "Yeah, man, come on, let's roll." Well, I know why.
Yeah, right.
He stayed back there and just scooped it up and put it in the live well, man.
Skyway, the land of 1,000 throws.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We made it work, man.
The bait's been getting consistent, though.
Yeah.
Last week, man, it was like, it was kind of weird. You wouldn't mark a whole lot. You just have to start chumming like you're on the flats.
Yeah.
And this week, I'm actually marking 10 foot of bait at
throwing
spots.
You know.
It was pretty thick where we were at, and then once the sun got up, it kind of changed. So somebody had asked where the bait's at. It's no secret, this time of year, or generally when most areas get tough for bait, the Skyway is always sort of the fallback.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Safe
can't
haven.
get
If
it
you're
at
willing
the bait,
to grind it,
right? If you can't get it at the bridge, odds are, with the exception of red tide situations, probably not going to get it most other places.
Right.
Just as a generalization.
Yeah.
But, most of the guys have been going to the Skyway Bridge, playing the tides, playing the depths, depending on the temperature, and then, water clarity is always one of those X factors.
The markers
you
seem dried up this year. I haven't been out in the last week.
No, there's some good Mahara and spadefish on the markers.
It's
sure.
hit and miss. I tell you something that I've found.
Hey,
I've been catching grouper the last week and a half. That was sort of a demand by a lot of customers that they started seeing us catch them and like, "Oh man, let's go see if we can get some groupers." So we spent some time bottom fishing. We spent some time trolling in the channels, and I can tell you that specifically in our area, there's a lot of bait, and it's in the channels.
Yep.
In like that 30-foot on the
it.
edges. And
so we need to make a
humpback
with a 30-foot.
Yeah, and extra long.
Yeah, extra long.
A 45-foot
you need like a shrimp trawler, bro, and just trawl through the.
Actually,
through
we might be able to
do
that. A couple of us
until it
out
hits
there.
the bottom of the edge of the channel and gets hung on the rocks.
But you'll be trolling along and you'll find some good live bottom, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is.
Yeah, I saw that a lot, especially last week when right before Christmas, we had that last front that kind of swept through right before it got warm, and I shifted from trolling to going after some of those grouper with live bait, so I was paying a lot more attention to the spot that I was on, and you're sitting there and you're like marking that edge of the channel or wherever you are, and then boom, it comes up, and there was we saw thick bait.
I mean, some of those areas we've always kind of said that, because we'll notice that sometimes, or a lot of the times, if all the markers are pretty slow, the first chance it's got to get it is in that deeper,
somewhere near
those
the
deeper
channel.
edges, those markers that are a little bit deeper. And my theory is it runs out to that 30, 40 feet, lays on the edges, and sort of gets drawn back when it does want to come out of that shallow depth. Or up
so
to the shallow
what do
depth
you think's going to drive it back to some of those markers, knowing that we've had this warm water?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, it should be. In my opinion, marking 72, 73 degree water temperature, you should
get out of that
up on the
thermal.
The markers.
Yeah.
Some of these markers are in the 20 to 22.
Then we'll be back. Then we'll be back to marker wars.
So,
marker wars,
another spring of that.
I had
have
one
to retire.
that I was getting bait at. These guys went to the bridge. I had been pretty good on shrimp. We'd been catching quite a few trout on shrimp and some snappers. And so I went locally to get some bait. Just needed, some snook baits, really. And went out there, marked a little bait, pulled around, and hung up somebody's cast net in a prop at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I spent an hour and like 15 minutes back there cutting somebody's net out of my prop.
Oh, it was hung on the marker?
It was hung on the marker. And if you guys see something like that, I always pull them out.
Yeah.
And what it was kind of right at that slack tide had just started moving, and somebody's net was hung up around the pole, and the hand line must have been, on the surface or just below the surface.
Yeah.
And I come around the marker, marked the bait, come back around, and sucked it up. Didn't even know it. And I sucked it all the way up to the lead line. I had a lead line around my prop. And so, so that's
not how you want to start your day.
No. And the moral of that story was there's a little bit of bait around.
Yeah.
It's just a little more work.
Right.
And your odds are against you for getting it.
I might actually go check some stuff because I got some bait pinned up for tomorrow, and I don't pick up till 10. But, last week I ran like 4 doubles in a row. I was pushed for time. I did not have time to go look to check stuff, so I just beeline where I knew I was getting, and I beeline back.
Yeah.
And,
the bridge run sucks. If it's calm, I'm running 40 mile an hour there. I'm burning 10 gallons of fuel there and back.
Yeah.
It's $20 of fuel, and I'm running. If I'm running 2 trips, I'm loaded up, and it's been the difference maker. I mean, the shrimp does work, but
I really don't mind that run,
particularly
to the
for
bridge,
snook fishing.
If it's not rough, it's rough. It sucks.
Yeah,
it does.
It does.
And then it only sucks worse once you get there and set up and try to get
it.
The only thing worse than the ride is when it is that rough is trying to get it while you're there.
The day before Christmas, I was taking them over the bow about 9 o'clock, and it started. All you got to do is your anchor slips, and you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bait, let's talk a little bit about shrimp. I know a lot of guys are using shrimp. I'm sort of a mixed bag. I really like having both.
Yeah.
I love having a live well full of bait. For me, going forward, I'll be back on the bait run, away from the grouper, away from a little more of the bay fishing.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't think it's as important, especially if you're bay fishing. And one of the things that we've been doing inshore on our trips with shrimp is I've been getting the bigger shrimp. Calling ahead.
Larges, jumbos.
Reserving some bigger, either jumbos or larges, and using a popping cork.
Yeah.
And, I kind of was talking to you guys a little bit about it today, and that was one of the things that in the areas that there were fish, and I knew there were trout. It's a little slower process. You're not chumming these fish up, but you're working these shrimp primarily on the tide. If it wasn't a running tide or a moving tide, you're not going to tear the fish up because you want that shrimp to look like it's naturally coming in, with the tide in some of these areas. And we found that if you use those bigger shrimp, you could actually hear the cork. You're not twitching the cork, but the Cajun Thunder,
the motion
Back
of the
Bay,
shrimp.
Thunders, they've got the little BBs on the bottom or the little balls, and that shrimp popping, you can actually hear it in the water, and that's what was triggering those trout to feed, was just the trout or the shrimp itself popping. So if you are going to do shrimp, that may be a technique that works for you on some moving water and some trout holes. I mean, there was some area that we were fishing, it was like 4 feet deep, and I was literally putting like 3 foot of leader beyond the cork. I mean, it's kind of funny to throw, but we ended up, catching those fish off the edge of the sandbar out there, and it worked. On the slack tide, I'd recommend going down to the bottom, taking a split shot on that shrimp or getting up under some deeper shorelines or something like that. But during those running tides, especially on a flat or an area around an oyster bar or something like that, you can get those fish to fire off if you sort of present the bait right.
You're not going to see the same activity at the surface you would if you're chumming white baits, but they're there and they like those shrimp.
What was kind of cool is one of the areas particularly that I like to fish for trout. If you chum a lot, you get a lot of ladyfish. You'll get the ladyfish fired up, and you'll go like 2 to 1 on trout, 3 to 1 on trout.
I've got a place like that.
And what was cool was I fished that area, and we didn't catch any ladyfish. All we caught were trout, and I think that's the first time that I'd ever fished it and not caught a few ladyfish when the trout are there. And I think it was attributed to not chumming and really just picking those trout off, because there's not a lot of them, and it seemed to be a pretty effective way to do it. So,
Manuel, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking the other day about remember the cap guns when you were a kid? They were kind of loud.
I saw some bottle rockets this morning, going off.
Yeah.
He goes, man, I got these birds, and wow, what the heck was that, dude?
Hey, it worked. I saw him leave a couple times. They were so bad. They were so bad today. There was times I had to get them out of the way so I could even throw the
Dude,
net.
let me tell you something. I had a split shot with a free line, and I had the bird
diving.
He got the bait with a split shot on it.
Man.
That's a turn.
Yeah. They're going down.
See, the seagulls are like grazers. Yeah. They come down and grab
turns,
stuff.
If it's not in the
it's
top
the
3
turns.
inches.
I mean,
they're
they'll
no
see
joke.
Bait, dude, and they'll get altitude
Roman candle
and lay on that
Starter
thing,
pistol.
dude. I mean, they dive
Great
bombs,
ideas
spread
here,
wings.
I was thinking the cap guns. When you're a kid, they got the little cap guns that pow, 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 pow. They're like toy guns.
Down. Just try if they get too close. But
when
you're talking about shrimp,
there's another nice shrimp thing.
Yeah.
I ain't had that with shrimp.
I had one hit with shrimp.
I didn't have them eating the shrimp.
I'll tell you, snapper fishing, I'm getting them.
Really, on
shrimp? Yeah, because
really, I hadn't.
So that was the other thing. You can go and do with this water temperature. Snapper for me has been kind of the main feature on my trips lately, and the shrimp have been out fishing the whitebait.
100% on the snapper for sure.
For sure. But I'm getting because I'm fishing a light split shot. I'm trying to do this at slack tide. I want it to drift down as slowly as possible for it to be right. And they kind of hang up there for a second. I've got the same terns, pelicans, you name it, going after the shrimp.
I don't know, boys. I think if PETA sees this show, we're going to be in a lot of trouble on their website.
That's Ty Colby.
Open season.
James Gary. No.
Open season, man.
I used to blow my air horn before coming up to a tower so I didn't get pooped out.
One of the things that we used to do or used to kind of work, and it still does, but, if you belly hook a bait, there's just some little things, you know what I mean? So you put a split shot on, you can, potentially belly hook a bait to try to get it down on the bottom. I guess those are about the only two. Now you can clip tails, and that'll that sometimes keep the bait from coming to the surface, especially if you have some,
ain't working,
some
bro.
bigger white baits.
I know. Any
especially in the areas that we're fishing. But you got to think too. We're fishing an area that's 1.5 to 2 foot deep because that's where these snook are in particular. Crystal clear water. That turn's got no problem finding that. And,
it amazes me how far they go into the water.
They will. And that's a turn.
That's a turn for sure.
That's a turn. If you can find an area with just seagulls.
Hey, but that's job security, Kathy.
Yeah.
Go ahead. This is the shameless plug. If you do get hit by a firework in the eye.
Yeah.
Captain Johnny, I've done some of that, trying to feed them off to the other side.
Take them to the other
keep
side.
Your anglers on one side. Definitely have done
What was nice is today I was trout fishing in an area, and I saw Jason come around the corner, and he was going to go up
I took the turns off
to the edge and go snook fishing, right? Well, I had already bombed a couple batfuls of chum, and we had caught a few trout, so I was like, all right. And the guy goes, he said something, goes, man, these birds or something. I said, just wait a minute. I said, we're going to get them taken off our hands.
Yeah.
About that time, Jason pulls around the corner, puts the power poles down. I just see chummers going
I
everywhere.
chummed the hell out of them,
Dude,
too.
those birds did a 180 and went straight to his
there was
boat.
a lot back
I was trying to hit them with chummers
later today, and they were everywhere.
Yeah, they sit in the trees.
Yeah.
So, they lay up in the mangroves, and they see a boat come in, and I feel like they have a spotter. There's one out there.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here they come.
And next thing you know, boom, dude, here comes the flock, bro.
I wonder if they go, oh, that's a guide. He's loaded with bait.
Yeah. Start firing out, black cats on a hook, dude. But anyhow,
John, Angelo's asking.
John, I tried to get some fish grippers here at TFO, man. There was none on the shelf.
John Rivers, there's no fish grippers left on the east coast of Florida or the west coast. We've tried it all. We're gonna have to get up into the Alabama, Georgia area.
He's got big stock
if you want fish
in
grippers,
fish grips,
fish lips.
But there are times I've had where you've got a bunch of snapper, and you're trying to get clients to take pictures, and they're like, no, and then I know John whips them out, and he's got 2 for every person on the boat.
Bro, some of them I don't know how you get them in their mouth.
Yeah.
But trout size. So Angelo, any size of the trout?
I had some 18s today. Nothing real big. We're just. I honestly I don't want to keep anything over 20.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to limit. We had quite a bit of trout today. I think we had 8 or so. I get past 5 or 6. I'm trying to
slow it down.
Yeah. Get away. I don't want to clean house. Especially because they've been kind of their work. I mean, we're getting them, but you really got to put some effort in. At least I have. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
The trout game for me, and I talk about it, when it happens, when I start trout fishing, it's like tide. Or, time of day, but it kind of bases on the tide. But, I mean, Jason and I were talking, I mean, there's some spots that I fish that sometimes I'll try it in the morning or and I'll come back.
It's hit or miss.
It's a 180. I mean, you catch 2 or 3 trout and you come back and it's like you hammer it just right when those fish are either congregated in the area or they're just ready to feed.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these areas you can't see them.
Yeah.
They're sitting off in 4 or 5 foot of water. You're not going to see a lot of the trout and they jump up on a bar, they jump up in a pothole, and you get them chummed up, and they start going, But it's really been, for me, it's been the incoming tide, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
The outgoing tide for me, these morning outgoing tides.
Funny you say that. I caught them on the outgoing today.
Exactly. But, I mean, for me, in the areas that I'm fishing.
Ideally, that's what you want to be set up with.
It hasn't been an outgoing thing. I've been catching trout. We fished an outgoing tide this morning, a little bit, started coming in, and we caught a few. But the incoming time for me has been better on the trout. The snook, really, I hadn't seen much of a difference. Seems like if you can find them, find which area they're in, they are moving. I know they're moving, the deeper stuff and the shallow, the lower tides are sitting off in the holes. And the second that water comes up, those fish are getting up into a foot and a half of water, to kind of hang out.
I want to add something to the whole split shot theory that I've been doing the last few days because of the birds. You know what I do like about it? My baits stay where I throw them, and I have a lot less tangles with customers.
Sure.
Yeah, customers
what
don't.
What are you doing, like a 1 ounce, 2 ounce?
I don't know. The big split shots.
3 ounce.
Bro,
whatever.
you know how big a 1 ounce egg
Yeah.
sinker is,
Yeah.
bro? That's what you grouper fish with.
Yeah, no, it's not 1 ounce, but I'm saying the big split shots.
Hey, Tony, just another thought. You asked about the tide. I know Travis said he liked the incoming, and Jason said he liked the outgoing.
No, I just like catching fish. I caught them on outgoing. I don't know which one they bite on. I go in there every time, and it's something different.
And I think that as an angler, and I think we kind of separate ourselves from like a weekend guy who's just getting out there. It's Saturday, and he's got 4 hours to go fishing. You can treat it if you have moving water and you kind of look at it, especially in the upper bay. I'm starting to learn where I like to spend most of my time is it's a water depth thing. So if that tide's moving out, I'm trying to get into a certain depth. So if you ever find good fish, Tony, one thing you could do is kind of notice what part of the flat they're in, or how far onto the flat they are, or if they're not on the flat, maybe they're on the edge. It's probably tide height driven, and as you just mix that with the moving water, that can turn them on. So maybe you don't get to pick your incoming or outgoing, but you have moving water and you've been getting them in 3 feet, then get in that 3 feet line of that flat. That's especially true in upper Tampa Bay side, as it seems to go gradually get shallower as you go up, and I'm sure the same is true elsewhere, but we'll just move out further. If we're dealing with a low tide that's just starting to come in, get out further.
Yeah.
I would say too that looking at water temps the last few days, that there's probably some mackerel starting to show up in the bay. I haven't done any of it, but the water's 72, 70.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me that if there's some mackerel.
The only problem is the bait. If there was a bunch of fry bait, if there was a bunch of fry bait around and we were still whacking it on the markers, I don't know what the beach, past the bridge.
Oh, I'm not saying.
No, I know, but I'm just
saying you might go out there and get a few. I'm not saying it's gonna be loaded up. The
For
water
sure.
temp is
I think
right
the
in
reefs
range.
would be your best spot. Like if you were out fishing one of the major reefs that's got some of this bait population that's sucked onto the reef.
Throw that net on the Bahia reef. That should work out
I
good,
want to
right?
see that. I'll show you a screenshot of that bad boy.
Fishing out of Maximo and O'Neill's last weekend, I think it was, or right before New Year's. There was definitely some people coming in with mackerel.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, it's definitely.
I haven't done it, but I'll tell you this year, with the demand to keep fish, I'm gonna be doing more mackerel fishing in the spring.
I do a lot of it.
I haven't done much of it the last few years. I just don't. Not a big mackerel guy, but you know what? It's
I don't even mind doing it. I honestly don't even mind doing it like catch and release.
Yeah,
like I'll have people that say, hey, like we'll go snapper fishing, and crazy enough, like we'll get a handful of snappers, and I'm like, hey man, you guys want to go try a different spot? It's like it's majority mackerel, but we might catch some snappers, and 9 times out of 10, man, they enjoy the mackerel fishing, just because it's so exciting. It's so action packed. They're either there or they're not. Like when you're mackerel fishing, you don't wait an hour for mackerel. Like it's either you're gonna pull up and start hammering them, or you're gonna keep moving.
Before we get to Jordan's question, one of the things when you talk about you're gonna do more is before I started guiding, that was one thing I never did: mackerel fishing.
Me neither.
And I even had some conversations with you where I had to get better at that and asked you for some advice. Fishing it more last year. One thing I'll tell you is the bonus of mackerel fishing. It's a great time. Keeps the rods bent. They peel off a bunch of drag. They're a lot of fun. They eat well. The bonuses, the surprise,
the cobias, the big kings,
yeah.
We didn't catch them, but I've had this happen several times where when I'm mackerel fishing, we'll see triple tail.
Yep.
Like coming in on because you're normally in high tide areas, right?
Yeah.
So if you're mackerel fishing, a lot of times you're in the rip. You're in where a lot of current's at, and we've seen triple tail come through on these grass mats. Fishing those tides with mackerel. So you're right, man. The bonus.
Yeah.
You never know.
There's some nice surprises
what's going to come around.
The biggest cobia we had all last year was one of my clients.
We caught we caught about a 90-pound tarpon last year, mackerel fishing. Yeah. Number 1 long shank J hook. My customer caught it, and he was in doing the CCA thing. We got it up, and like literally, man, like it was right there. I had the leader, and we had 20-pound leader and the long mackerel hook, and I could not get the fish to the boat. Like he's got the Bull Bay rod boat over, and we got a picture of it like right beside the boat. But the second I put my hand on the leader, tink. Yeah, so it's like the fish was
probably even got it
too
that
big.
far.
Yeah, me too.
So same deal. Kevin, was looking at potentially looking at one of your boats. I think he might even be watching. I saw him log in a minute ago. He was with his brother-in-law and their nephew mackerel fishing. And next thing you know, I mean, we're using 3,000 size reels, 50-pound cobia on that. Took 45 minutes to get in. No gaff, no net, of course. Got to wait for him to tire up and flip him in. Second, I got my hands on him.
Hook pops out.
But we got him in.
Yeah.
But, it was pretty intense. So those are the nice surprises. Tarpon is one I didn't mention. Kingfish, cobia, triple tail, but tarpon.
Especially because it's that time of year.
Yeah, it came up a lot, and we just never had the gear for it.
Right. No, they'll get you. And you'll know because you'll get smoked.
You want to take a little break, Travis?
Yeah. Let's take a little break here, guys. Hear a few words from the sponsors, and when we get back, we'll talk a little more fishing. See if you guys got any questions, and we'll be here for about another half hour, guys. So hang tight. You're watching Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report.
Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. You've got Captain Travis down on the end, Jason here, and James, myself. And Pat, the answer is yes, it is filmed on a GoPro. So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Hopefully good.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. But, kind of as we were sitting here, guys, I said I want to pull up the weather and look what the next 7 days look like. But it looks like for the most part, as far as the eye can see, there's only really a day and a half.
Friday we got a front. It's supposed to be kind of windy. Friday night going to Saturday. I don't think it's a strong front.
No, I saw a low.
It'll be nice. Let it cool off a little bit.
The evening is going to be 48, but it looks like we'll have some wind late Friday and all of Saturday. So
I think the next good cold front. It's like we constantly say this, but that next one is going to be the one that really makes the fish do the final push. You know what I mean?
I felt like we already had. Coming
for
into
us,
Christmas,
it didn't. Not yet.
Yeah.
Not. I think you'd agree. I mean, we hadn't had like the flush yet, where it's like everything's dead, and then the good stuff is like on fire. As far as cold weather fishing.
Yeah, no. It's been like that last few years because our cold weather hadn't really. It had been cold when it should be cold.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's been a little different. So the fish are doing different stuff, but it's you have to. The biggest thing for me with fishing is you have to read the environment, what's going on around you, water temps, wind and fronts, and adjust your trips based on that. I was a little delayed on doing that going into Christmas for the simple fact I was catching fish. I was running north, getting fish, but it was thinning out every day, and it kept getting warmer, and a lot of these fish were pushing out of the deep creeks.
Yeah.
But I was running doubles, so I really didn't want to take that. I didn't have time to take that risk of going somewhere I hadn't fished.
Yeah.
And then really bombing because it's happened before because I was running 2 trips a day. But I did. I had one trip, and we ran in there and whacked some fish pretty good. And in my head, I'm thinking, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So you just have to be able to read the water temps. That's where being a guide, besides our knowledge of what we know, but it's being out there every day to see. We actually watch stuff change as it changes instead of going. If you're out there on Saturday and you go the next Saturday, and there was a front that came through that was a strong, you went from one extreme to the other. We're out there every day, and we actually see the change happening day to day. So that really does help us. And then, of course, we lean on each other. If I hadn't fished in a few days, I can call James or I can call Travis and get an idea. They're not going to give me exact spots, but they give me, hey, man, the trout bite was good over this way, that way. And then based on what I know, I can make an assumption. So that helps us catch fish. Some of the pluses of going with a guide sometimes, you take the worry out of it.
It's to kind of follow up with all that is knowing the area that you fish.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that the difference between growing up fishing an area. Because, I mean, I'm fortunate enough, and you, for the most part, that we fish in an area that we grew up fishing in. Had a lot of bad days.
Yeah.
Had a lot of days where you didn't catch fish, but you drove around and you found a new hole.
Yeah.
Or you found a new canal, or whatever the case may be. But what that boils down to is knowing the area that you fish. Knowing the area that you're going to fish.
What
and
impacts it.
What times of year certain fish are in certain areas. And then you start tying in the tide to it. And you go, well, I caught fish over there yesterday afternoon, but it was a 1-foot tide. The fish didn't up and go to the Skyway Bridge. Those fish moved somewhere. And knowing, not even necessarily where the fish are, but knowing where the water is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes that can help you. Because there's times where I've found fish. I don't know the fish are there, but I know what kind of depth, I know what kind of water is going to be in certain areas, and I'll go to that area where you look up and you see dry land, even though it's a mile away. Well, those fish have funneled down into a different area, and part of that is, and I see guys do it all the time, fly into an area, fish for 10 minutes, knowing in my head that it's not right. It's not right for that area to be fishing it, and they blow back out. Instead of really looking at the area and kind of analyzing and go, well, those fish aren't there, but they maybe transitioned and moved over
here.
X, Y, Z.
Sometimes sometimes that can be, if you're a guide, client based, inpatient clients.
No,
make that
100%.
Make that jump. All right, let me get out of here because I ain't got time.
But I think we've all been guilty of that. Is just anglers ourselves is
spot hopping, especially if you're having a tough time.
Yeah.
And you've burned, the confidence spots where you're like, hey man, 5 minutes and this place is gonna fire off. And
it did.
15 minutes later, you're going 2 more minutes, guys. 2-minute warning. And then after a couple of those, you're kind of like, all right, we're giving each spot like 5 minutes. We got to speed this process up.
And that's you're good at honing in stuff. I'm pretty good at it, but sometimes it's my clients. I'm like, man, I'm getting out of here. This is not. Yeah. I don't want to deal with sitting here for 2 hours.
Make a big change.
And some of that's bittersweet, because
the
reason why you figure it out is because you sat there when it sucked.
Yeah.
And you were there when it got good. Mm-hmm. So then you go, well, why'd that happen? And you start putting those patterns together. And over years and years of sucking, you actually start being good because you're like, wait a minute, I know on a high tide, slacked out that spot sucks, man. You got to wait till that water starts dumping out.
Well, there's a good example of kind of what you're talking about. So Jace, I know he watched the show a lot, so he's kayak fishing, and I guess the same would be true for a wade fisherman. Is you don't have the ability to just get up and go.
Right.
You're not going from Bishops to the northern end of Cockroach. You commit to an area and you have to fish it. So I think what you're saying is if you've been working an area and you've consistently been finding fish and you show up one day and they're not, and your spots aren't producing, I think you're just trying to work through that process of elimination. Well, what's different?
Yep.
Has it gotten cooler? Is the water lower? Because you're right, they're not making these huge migrations. None of our species, there are a few, but for the most part, especially your everyday flats fish, they're going to stay generally at home.
Well, and that's the difference between, and I see this all the time, and I'm a pretty analytical guy, but I will say this, that without major weather changes or tidal changes, the fish aren't going to up and leave.
Right.
There's a lot of times where you sit there and you're fishing in an area that has a ton of fish. They're just not chewing. Mm-hmm. The time's not right.
Yep.
The tide's not right. The sun's not right. The clouds are, whatever the case may be, there's something else going on that those fish aren't going to eat at that time. Jason just left, and I pulled up and, or vice, There's a lot of things going on, and so what I always tell customers, because they always ask, and I'm sure you guys get it too, there's a lot of times where the first sentence that comes out of the customer's mouth is, this is a learning trip. We don't care what we want to learn something from the trip. You know what I mean? And so what I always tell people is, when you do go fishing, remember when it sucks, remember when it's good. Always remember what took place, even if you don't realize it at the time, but go back and go, hey, we were fishing a cold day in the winter and it was low tide and we crushed the fish or vice versa. But if you don't sort of remember all that, or whether it's a fish log or just by memory, you're not going to get any better. You know what I'm saying? By being able to kind of pinpoint it.
Well, I think the one, you talk about, you learn your area really well, right? So if Jace and Pat, you guys are talking on the kayak thing, you probably spend a great deal of time fishing a general area. I think what Travis does well, what we all have to do well, is really learn it so that when you're in a situation that's not working, you know what you can deviate to next. If there's a deep hole around, if there's a channel or a creek, something, another set of features or another set of circumstances that you can divert to. If you're just going to be on a long stretch of a flat where it's all the same depth and it's 1,000 yards of that, there's maybe not a whole lot you can divert to except go out a ways from it. But Jace, I know where you like to be a lot. You have a lot of those features. You have shorelines, you have troughs, you have the edges of the flats, you have a lot of channels, you have a lot of mud potholes in the backcountry. So, if you're out there and you're not seeing what you need to see, you got to make a change. But it doesn't always mean you have to pick up and leave and like we can and get on plane and get out of there. I would say that, if you're fishing the grass flat, try to find some muddy, deeper bottom, if you have access to it, or some troughs around oyster bars.
And you could try techniques, too. I did a lot of kayak fishing. I did a lot of canoe fishing growing up as a kid, and john boats, and we got bait, but a lot of times we fished artificial. And so one of the things you can do is not only kind of move around in the area that you're fishing in, but change your tactic. Like if you're throwing jigs, you may want to, when the tide drops out, go ahead and switch over to either a weedless or go to a topwater plug, and you'll maybe find a difference in just changing the tactic that you're using in that area. There's a lot of times where, especially in an area, like if I'm kind of prospecting an area, I'll put a guy out with a cork, a guy out with a free line, and maybe a guy with a split shot.
Oh,
and just try to see.
All the time.
And you'll find one of those will produce, and there really is no reason why. You know what I mean? And you go, okay, guys,
just what they like that
we're all switching over, and you start pounding the fish, and the guy pulls in next to you, starts throwing corks, and you know they're not eating corks, and you're hammering the fish, and he's looking at you like, what's going on? They move, you know?
Yep.
So
basically, we throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what
you got to.
Sticks.
You got to.
Yep.
But if you can use all that effectively and sort of know, hey, you know you're fishing it right, you know the spot's good. It's
the problem
you
with
get that confidence built that
the problem with that
make
sometimes is it's a process of elimination, and it takes time. And when you have
you got to go through the process. The process is the process.
Sometimes you have the impatient clients
for sure, man.
That'll put the
but
you got to try to calm down and tell them. But a lot of times if I get that, I just roll to like, let's go catch some fish, and we'll go from there. What's the toughest thing for me nowadays is,
which could include ladyfish. We're talking jacks. We're talking catfish. I mean, we get down.
Birds as of late.
Birds.
Caught more birds this week than I ever have, unfortunately. But, so it's, it just, as guides, you become good fishermen. You also become very versatile because you have different people on the boat that want different things out of the trip.
Yeah.
And that varies big time from trip to trip, We joke about it at the dock when we're down there. Like, man, I went from catching trophy snook yesterday to ladyfish today, just based on what they wanted to do.
I almost booked a marlin trip last week.
That's what
you guys do, marlin? Yeah, man.
Tell you what, I'm getting more and more shark requests. I think that's one thing I'm gonna have to get more into is the shark.
Oh, shark fishing's fun, dude. I like it, man.
It's all right. It's not rocket science. You'll get you a mackerel and a steel leader.
I don't know. Give me a big shrimp at the power plant when it's cold, man.
Yeah, well, the bonnet heads are sorry excuses for shark.
I haven't got many of them recently, or like I'd seen the last couple of years. Partial probably to the people down in the marina for me, but I used to get a lot of shark trips. Like, it seemed like a lot. And you know what most of them were? 3 or 4 dudes, bachelor party,
drinking some
couple
beers.
Dudes that are from Michigan, gearheads that want to go wrench on something big.
Yeah.
One of my best clients, and I'm going to use the word best because we got a lot of good clients and they're all great, but one of my clients has been with me since pretty much the start. Is a guy, and we took him shark fishing for the very first trip. That's what he wanted to do. And we have crossed the gamut from sharks to Goliaths to tarpon to snook to he's caught it all. You know what I mean? But it started with sharks. That was his original request. He was from Ohio. That's Big Bob Barnhart, my man. But they're fun, man. Like we always talk about, we take it for granted. And guiding is one thing that will keep that in perspective. We had a trip this about a month ago, and we had caught several medium-sized snook, 18 to 24 inches. And the lady on the boat, it was actually a trip that was sponsored by Mastery Suzuki. They paid for a trip and raffled it off at one of the boat shows. A couple, won it, and the lady had never caught a snook, So we get to the spot. 5 minutes in, she missed one, caught one. It was like 14, 15. It was a tiny little snook. The excitement that this chick got out of reeling in this snook and getting her picture with it, like, I was just kind of like, but that was her first snook. Didn't matter.
Right.
She was Instagramming it up. You know what I mean? And like, as much as we look at it and we're like, to her, that's a moment like that she'll remember.
If you're not in
for a long time,
Tampa or south,
so
you're not even targeting snook anywhere else. So.
For most people, it's not that big a deal. But as a guide, for me, I even made the post about it, I was like, it kind of put it into perspective. I was like, heck yeah, we're high-fiving and cheering. I'm like, there's your snook, Hopefully,
hey, Jordan, I saw you ask
one.
the question once before, and we didn't get to it. And I know we talked about it at the beginning of the show, but he's looking for some bait help here. We've been talking about it's been rather difficult for the most part, or in most areas of the bay. I can tell you right now, most of us, we're kind of banking on the Skyway Bridge. Now, if that's not feasible for you to get to, we're not saying don't look elsewhere, because I know there's bait elsewhere. If you're in the Upper Bay, there's bait.
There's some bait in the canals, too.
You can really find it. But for us,
Jordan, where are you at? If you're watching still, where are you at? Give us an idea where you're at, and
we'll try to dial it in for you.
We'll kind of see if we can't point you in the right direction.
But yeah, you mentioned that, and that's one thing. I've really had to remember is that, you got to really understand your client's expectations, or kind of really talk to them about what it is would make a good day for them. And of course, we all know you're going to get I want to get some bull reds, then go hit some tarpon, and then if we can get a couple keeper gags, we'll call it a day.
Why not?
But in reality,
get a Goliath and a shark.
In reality,
throw that in.
4-hour trip.
We could get that on the way back.
4-hour trip.
In reality, though, I find that a lot more clients, they're about a couple things: some take home dinner, or a bent rod. And those are like the two main goals that most people step onto my boat with. Now, most trophy
trips are pretty well planned. You know it. You're going into it.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to catch a lot of fish.
You're waiting on that customer. You're waiting on the tide. And then all of a sudden, you're like, hey, man, it's time. Let's go see if we can get you the tarpon or the big snook.
Yeah, you're in contact with them throughout the year.
The big school of reds are here,
Hey, Jordan, so I've actually got one of my buddies from the shop who guides up in that area. He's not depending on bait a whole lot right now. And the days that he is getting bait, he is definitely out fishing a jig head with a paddle tail, especially if you're looking at trout right now. I mean, he said it's not even a contest where he's not even bothering with bait. So he's up in the honeymoon Dunedin
Interesting.
area. Couple of guides that I know Mike Cole's one of them, buddy Trey. They've been fishing out of that Dunedin area. They're foregoing the bait, man. They're buying shrimp. Now, I wish I had a better report for you. I'll see if I can get a couple of the guys I know who run that area, or maybe these guys, to chime in and help you out. But definitely, buddy, right now I think you're going to be best off with shrimp or an artificial in that area.
I'll tell you what was another thing, and there is quite a bit of ladyfish around. And
that's a good point.
Grab a couple of those, throw some jigs, throw some top water plugs, throw a spoon, throw anything in an area that's got some flow. And you should find some ladyfish this time of year. If you can, snap a few of those and go look for a deep edge or a deep shoreline, or go fish the potholes for redfish right now.
Yeah.
If you're patient, you can get redfish on cut bait, staged up in these potholes right now. It's something that we're planning on doing. I actually was talking to a customer about it. I was like, with this warmer temperatures, we should be able to get out there and sting some of these redfish coming back in, because these low mornings, they're staging up. I haven't seen any schools, but definitely some solos and good some wolf packs, moving through.
Threes moving around.
Been seeing them on the skiff every time I've been out. I've been seeing redfish. Mm-hmm. The problem is that, like the snook, these redfish are getting real shallow. Mm-hmm. They're not dropping off with the tides, in areas that there's water.
Yeah.
But I've been finding them in some pretty shallow areas, almost to the point where you can't fish them. Mm-hmm. You need like a technical polling skiff, like a real
and a fly,
real shallow boat that you can maneuver around. But there's another idea for bait is catch a few ladyfish and chunk those up. That'll work just fine. So.
Angela, I think all three, most of us are in the same boat, man. I've been running for the last 2 weeks. I've had some shrimp in the boat every time I left the dock.
I did till the last few trips. I've been
until it started warming up.
Yeah, and I've had a problem keeping the shrimp alive at my house because of all the fresh water. The river's still not. It's getting better, but it's still not right. There's just too much fresh water dumping out there from all that rain we had. Was it week before last? So it's I actually had to block my well off before I got in the and then put a bubbler, and it was okay. But you couldn't keep shrimp alive at my house.
What color cow jig are you using, Jordan?
While he's answering,
curious.
That, I've been a lot of these times when I'm having this leftover shrimp that well set up on that Pathfinder, I'm just leaving the bubbler on overnight. I've been good. There was one time from Christmas Eve and Christmas, I sat with shrimp in the bubbler for 2 days and they did very well. I was just talking to Nate down south in the Anna Maria area, and he's talking about can he leave his recirc on for that long. I was like, I was a little worried. I didn't want the pump to be running for that long, and I turned on the bubbler, and it was good.
Yeah, you can turn on a bubbler.
Water started getting a little cloudy after that second day.
I mean, you can leave the recirc on. It's no different than running your well all day long. The only
get worried for 48 hours of running that pump. I don't know.
I don't think it would hurt it. I mean, they're designed to run continuously. The only thing is plug your battery charger in on your boat,
of course,
and make sure you got enough juice.
I've actually got one of the bubblers, Mr. Lee's bubbler.
Mm-hmm.
I put 2 AA batteries that work
Drop
for
that
3
in.
days, like overnight.
Hey, Jordan, just to get back to you said root beer. That's an
Root beer's
awesome
an
color.
awesome
I
color.
love it. Now, one thing to consider is how clear this water likely is in the Honeymoon and Dunedin area. And I know that it's very clear up there right now from what I've heard. Sometimes to go to a natural, something clear, maybe with some silver and green flake, like a Houdini, is a nice alternative color to have to that.
I got a suggestion for you.
Can I guess? Is it a 313?
Hey, the 313 Gold Glitter, Jordan. If you ain't got some of those, man, grab a pack of those and let me know what you think. Any color jig head, don't matter.
Yep.
But try those out. And try those on for size and let me know what you think.
Well, cool. Well, we've only got a few minutes left, so maybe if there's any questions, guys, definitely hit us. But I think we all talked. A lot of these folks that are watching are probably going to try and get out and fish this weekend, right? And while we were in that break, we were talking about this front coming through Friday and Saturday. You got a double, I got a trip. You said you have a trip. So looking at Saturday, knowing that Saturday's the day the front's coming through, what's going to be your game plan versus what you've done over the last few days? What's going to change? What do how are you going to approach that?
For me is my big question is is it going to be too rough to get bait? I don't know what the winds are doing.
Yeah.
I got to look at that. If I can get bait, depending on which way, if it is kind of windy, the direction of the wind. So if it's blowing out of the north, you're going to have less water than what we've had. So I have to drop off to some areas that are deeper. But I don't think the front's going to cool the water temp enough to move fish a whole lot.
Yeah.
Not for that short period.
No.
Not when we've let it get back up into the 70s.
Yeah, so I think
I think it'll fire them off, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do too. I think you're just going to have to find deeper areas, and I don't think it'd be a big deal.
Cool.
One of the things, like, I don't know, you kind of mentioned it, but getting deeper when the fronts come through, a lot of times fish won't leave an area, but they'll certainly drop off. So you go more to that. If you're a cork guy, you might want to take the cork off in the area, maybe drop out a foot or two. Maybe if you've been crushing fish or getting fish up on an edge or a shallow area, maybe find the deepest area close to that and try that. Slowing it down a little bit, a cut bait, can be productive on some of those days where the fronts come through. Might not catch as many fish, but you can potentially get a bite. Especially, last year we did it several times during some of those really bad weather conditions. We actually caught big snook, and it was on cut bait. And it was really just kind of waiting it out, knowing that the fish were in that area, leaving a big cut bait out, and these things would eventually just sort of suck one down.
Yeah, I think that's the key with big snook fishing. A lot of
100%.
People are like, I want to catch big snook. I want to catch a lot of snook. I'm like, well, do you want to catch big snook or a lot of snook? Because they typically don't go together.
Yeah.
It's a different style of fishing. You gotta, like he's saying, hone in on an area, and you've got to keep throwing baits in that area. You're not gonna see a bunch of big snook blowing up on chum. They're just not gonna do that. So it's, that's just a different type of fishing. But cut bait, like you said, they're garbage can fish. They're gonna pick that stuff off the bottom.
And ladyfish, that's another one. Throw them in a freezer, throw them in a Ziploc, like I told you the other day, I mean, we got on these ladyfish, had white bait, chumming area. It was like 2-1 on ladyfish. I'm like, you know what? I just started loading the cooler up with ladyfish and the trout, you know what I mean? And it sort of paid dividends when we did some grouper fishing because we caught quite a few grouper on cut ladyfish,
Yeah.
And I didn't go to the bridge and get live bait, and so it sort of played into the game that I was running at the time, but it's something that we always sort of lose track of is, if you got a cooler, throw a couple extra ladyfish in the cooler. Make sure you don't get them soaking wet. Try to keep them on, dry ice.
Yeah, they get
but,
pretty
you don't want them soggy. And then
they can also pick those up here at the store. Like we stock ladyfish, mullet, bonita, redfin, sardines, menhaden, finger mullet, shrimp, crab, sand fleas, you name it. So, that's all they carry is frozen bait.
Right.
But what we're talking about is perfect.
It's perfect, man. And real quick, and we always kind of mention it, but if you guys want to get out, this is a good time to get out because fishing is not the easiest at times. And if you do want to get out, all of us, what can get you out this time of year, we fish, if not every day, at least every other day or two, and we got a good grip on what's going on, and it may help you become a better wintertime fisherman during the slow season. So if you want to get a hold of me, You can give me a call at 813-830-3474. That's Captain Travis and Captain Jason.
813-727-9890. Website steadyactionfishingcharters.com.
Steady Action. Captain James Beers. The phone number is 813-625-2067. Website is localknowledgefishing.com. And before we cut out, we got to give a little shout out to our buddy Ty. I think he's speaking at the George Proveromo Seminar Series.
All right.
It's coming up February 2nd. It's going to be at the Sheridan in Brandon. Ty, if you can shoot us maybe some of that info, a link on Facebook or whatever, we can help get that shared out there for you.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll get the invite to do that, Travis.
We'll definitely want to support you
I
in
don't
that.
know, man. If he watches our show, I think we're hosed.
Yeah, you're right, Andre. We'll get that up on the page if there's ever a way you want to get a hold of us. And there's also Rick with Real Simple, so we'll get his info up there too.
813-601-2290, I believe.
Nice
2900.
2900? 2900. There you go.
There you go.
601-2900.
All right, well, till next week, guys, we'll be out in the water. Got any questions, feel free to shoot us a message or post something on the page. But as always, we appreciate you following us.
See you guys.
See ya.